This is Oxana Malaya, known as the Dog Girl. She lived with dogs and survived on raw meat and scraps. The dogs taught her how to crawl on four legs, how to eat and drink like them, how to carry things in her mouth, and even how to shake herself dry just as they did. But how did a young child end up without humans, and instead surrounded only by dogs? Why was there no family to care for her, while the pack of strays became her only source of food, warmth, and protection? This is the story of Oxana Malaya, the girl who was raised by dogs for 5 years. Oxana Malaya was born on November 4, 1983, in the small Ukrainian village of Nova Blahovishchenka. She came into the world as a healthy baby, but her parents were not suited for parenthood. Both were heavy drinkers, and on top of that, the house was already overcrowded with too many children. For little Oxana, care, love, and stability were missing right from the start of her childhood. Then came the night when everything changed. Oxana was just 3 years old when he was left outside for a night. We don't know the full details of that day, but what she remembered later was simple and devastating. She was left outside in the bitter cold. Neither her parents nor her siblings noticed she was absent in the house. That little girl cried and wept, but no one came. At some point, she crawled toward the family dog, Nayeda, and into the kennel. The dog accepted her presence, and she spent the night there, sleeping in their warmth. Next morning, no one came to take her out of the kennel, and so she stays there for the next night, and then next, and so on. Occasionally, she would step out during the day, but at night, when she was cold and hungry, she returned to the dogs. And nobody in the house seemed to notice. Her parents were lost in their drinking, blind to the fact that one child was missing. From that point forward, Oxana began spending her days and nights with the dogs, and that was the beginning of a life that would no longer resemble that of a human child. From the age of 3 until nearly 8, Oksana's world was no longer human. It was the kennel. It was the dogs. For almost 5 years, she lived as one of them. The dogs became her family, and she copied everything they did. She ran on all fours, her hands and feet toughened by the ground. She ate scraps and raw meat. She drank water by lowering her head and lapping it up with her tongue. When she was dirty, she licked herself clean. Language also slipped away from her mind. Instead of words, she learned barks and growls. Years later, she explained it simply. I would talk to them, they would bark, and I would repeat it. That was her only way to communicate. The pack didn't just accept her, they protected her from outside dangers too. To them, Oxana was a member of the pack. Together they searched for scraps, scavenged through garbage bins, and curled up close at night to stay warm. Day after day, year after year, she lived as a dog would live. What began as a child's desperate act of survival grew into a complete transformation of behavior. Crawling, barking, eating off the ground, these were no longer imitations. They were her reality. By the time Oxana turned 8, she had spent most of her conscious childhood outside of human society. The habits of the kennel had replaced the habits of a home. To the dogs, she was one of them. To the world, she was already losing her humanity. For years, Oksana's entire world was the kennel and the dogs. But that hidden life could not remain secret forever. In 1991, after nearly 5 years of living with the pack, Oxana's reality was finally exposed to the outside world. It was basically a neighbor who spotted her from a distance first. Oxana was 8 years old that time when the neighbor noticed her outside the family home. What they saw was not the sight of a normal child. She wasn't walking upright. She was running on all fours, quick and low to the ground. She wasn't speaking. She was barking, growling, and baring her teeth. To the neighbor, it was as if a wild animal had taken the form of a little girl. Shocked and disturbed, they were confused and frightened at the same time, and so they alerted the authorities. When police and rescuers arrived, they faced an unexpected challenge. The dogs had grown so attached to Oxana that they defended her as fiercely as one of their own. Anyone who came near was met with snarls and teeth. To the pack, humans were intruders, and Oxana was family. The rescuers had to distract the dogs with food, creating a narrow chance to reach the girl. When they finally pulled her out of the kennel, what they found stunned them. She was more like a little dog than a human child. She moved on all fours, lapped water with her tongue, and showed no sign of human speech. Her sharp, jerky movements mirrored those of the pack that had raised her. This was not a game. This was not imitation. This was the heartbreaking result of a child who had spent her formative years outside of humanity. And now, for the first time, Oxana was being separated from the only family she knew, the dogs. Being pulled from the kennel was only the beginning. Oxana had been rescued from the dogs, but returning her to the world of humans would prove to be a far greater challenge. She was placed in a special children's home, the Barraboy Clinic, where caregivers and doctors began the long process of rehabilitation. But the first days made one thing painfully clear. Oxana no longer behaved like a child at all. She would hide objects the way a dog buries a bone. If someone tried to take them away, she snapped, barked, or even bit. When shown water, she stuck out her tongue as if to lap it up. At meals, she bent forward and ate straight from the plate without using her hands. She was more like a small animal than a human being. Step by step, the staff worked to teach her how to live again as a person. She was taught to walk upright, to hold food in her hands, and to speak. Progress was slow, but to everyone's surprise, she began learning words quickly. Within a short time, she could say hundreds of them. Yet there were limits no therapy could erase. Years of crucial development had been lost in the kennel. According to experts, if a child does not acquire language by around age 5, the brain's ability to fully develop it may be gone forever. Oxana spoke, but her speech was flat, almost like commands with little rhythm or tone. Doctors concluded that her intellectual capacity remained that of a 6-year-old. She could talk, laugh, and understand simple things, but the window for full recovery had already passed. Oxana had left the kennel behind, but the imprint of those years with the dogs would stay with her for life. As Oxana grew older, the traces of her early years never fully disappeared. She learned to speak, to walk upright, and to live among people, but she never developed at the same level as others her age. By adulthood, she was living in a care facility where she worked on the farm, tending to cows and animals. Caring for them seemed natural to her, as though life had come full circle. Yet the shadow of her past remained. Oxana sometimes tried to show people what she had once been. At parties or with friends, she would drop to all fours, bark, or growl. To her, it was a part of her history. To others, it was frightening. One boyfriend left her after seeing her slip back into those old dog-like habits. She also reunited with her father and half-sister in 2006, a moment that brought hope but also revealed deep wounds that time had not healed. Her father had been absent for most of her life, and her longing for her mother never went away. She admitted in interviews that she still wished to be treated as a normal human being, and hated being called the dog girl. Oxana Malaya's story is not only a personal tragedy, it is also a window into one of psychology's biggest questions: the balance between nature and nurture. Today, Oxana still lives in care, tending to animals. In a way, her life has returned to where it began, surrounded by creatures who once saved her. Yet her story stands as more than survival. It is a reminder of how fragile childhood is, and how much we rely on others to become who we are. Oxana Malaya is known to the world as the dog girl, but behind that label is a deeper lesson. Those 5 years in the kennel shaped her forever, and they show us what happens when humanity is taken away too soon.